All right, everybody, what is going on? Good morning. Happy Friday. We have made it to the end of the week, and we're going to have a little bit more fun today. We're making more fun videos lately because we are in the dead part of the off season, and when you win the Super Bowl, you got the right to have a little bit of fun. So, hope everybody is doing well. And today's video, and I think I'm going to have another one later today, but today's video, this one's going to be about comparing the two best Seattle Seahawks teams of all time. We're talking about the team we just watched win the Super Bowl and the only other team in franchise history that has won the Super Bowl. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. And yeah, I just kind of want to ask the question now. I did not want to ask it right after the Super Bowl. I didn't want to ask it right during the midst of the offseason because I thought that there would be some recency bias, and maybe there still will be, but I wanted to at least give it a few months and get to a slower part of the off season where maybe we'd have a slightly better chance of processing things fairly. I want to ask, which Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl champion winning team is the better team? Who's better? I got a comment on one of my videos recently that made me think about this, and it's kind of something that I think about on my own independently anyway. You can't help but think about things like this, but which Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl champion team is the best? The 2025 team or the 2013 team? So, little bit difficult. It's not immediately obvious, right? Because both teams lost 3 regular season games. Both teams got the number 1 seed in the NFC, won their division, of course. And also, actually, both teams had the number 1 defense in football in terms of points allowed per game. And a couple other metrics as well. They were the number 1 defense. So they had a lot in common. They also had to beat a division rival in a very tough NFC championship game to get to the Super Bowl. And both teams also had kind of an anticlimactic Super Bowl in the sense that it didn't really feel like it was the Super Bowl. It felt like the NFC Championship game was the Super Bowl, and then the Super Bowl was just kind of a coronation. Regardless, I think this is a fun thing to discuss, a fun thing to think about. So let's compare the two teams the best that we can. So the 2013 team, let's start with the first team to win the Super Bowl. This is the Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, Richard Sherman, Legion of Boom Seahawks. What stands out about that Seahawks team above the 2025 team? I think the answer is clear. It's turnovers. It's all about the turnovers. The 2013 team didn't turn the ball over a ton, right? They had Russell Wilson at quarterback, and even this early in his career, Russell Wilson was not a guy who turned the ball over a ton. They had some fumbles, of course, but overall, this was not a team that turned the ball over a lot, and they were a team that forced a lot of turnovers. If you look at their statistics here on defense, you can see that they had the league leader in interceptions with Richard Sherman. Earl Thomas had a bunch. Maxwell, Cam, Wagner, and Irvin both had multiple interceptions. They forced fumbles as well. Cliff Averill forced 5 fumbles from his position as edge rusher. Like, turnovers were the name of the game for the 2013 team, and that persisted into the postseason, whereas the 2025 team actually had more turnovers than takeaways. They gave it away a lot. And luckily that went away in the postseason, but that's the number one thing for the 2013 team, I think. If you like sports, then the best way to make them even better and more exciting is using the Prize Picks app, where it always feels good to be right. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy simple. Just pick more or less on your favorite players and build lineups with a few taps. Whatever sport you're into, and obviously we are now firmly into the NFL offseason, so we're all about baseball. We got some basketball, we got some hockey, whatever it is you like. Prize Picks gives you a fun way to stay locked in while you're watching. Definitely make sure to use the promo code HMA. Prize Picks is hooking up users with $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. If you use that promo code, that is HMA. I've had a great time on Prize Picks so far, so definitely get on over to it, check it out, and make sure to get your lineups. And don't forget about Team Picks, where you can pick winners, spreads, and totals on any major game. So download the app now, use HMA, and get on over to Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And remember, always gamble responsibly. I mean, the 2025 team literally had the league leader in turnovers playing quarterback for them, and while they forced a decent number of turnovers on defense, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a bad showing. It wasn't elite either, and it wasn't enough to offset the issues they had turning it over offensively. Like, they had a linebacker lead their team in interceptions, and then Kobe had 4. Kendrick, of all people, Darion Kendrick had 2, and then nobody else had more than 1. So it was not a team that forced a ton of turnovers compared to the typical top defense. So that would be the main thing that I think the 2013 team has. What does the 2025 team have most explicitly over the 2013 team? That's a little bit of a tough one, I think. And the fact that it's tough might kind of indicate what the right answer is. I think there are 2 things that come to mind when I think of the 2025 team and trying to say where it's better. The first would be, despite the turnovers, I do think the offense was better. I do think the 2025 team had a better, more dependable, and ultimately superior offense. It's close. Like, points per game, the 2025 team obviously does a little bit better, but that's partially because they had all the defensive and special teams touchdowns that the 2013 team did not have. But here's the thing. That 2013 team, there was a trade-off. They didn't turn it over very much. They had a quarterback that did a very good job protecting the ball. But there were moments littered throughout the season where the offense just went to sleep, and it would take, a quarter, 20 minutes, sometimes even it felt like an entire half for them to even start getting first downs. They would just completely fade off. They would just completely fall off, and they couldn't move the ball at all. Like, I think we went into halftime against a terrible Tampa Bay team down 21-0. You had that game against Arizona in week, I think it was 17, where the offense just never got anything going. You had the opener against Carolina, where the offense didn't really have any good drives until the end of the game and still managed to win. There were a lot of games in 2013 where the offense just kind of sleptwalked, and then they'd get it together for like 2 good drives the whole game, and that would be enough to win the game. The Houston game, the first San Francisco game on some level, like, there were some sleepy moments, even if they ended up 8th in points scored, which is pretty good. I think the 2025 offense was better because it didn't fall asleep as much. They had a couple of moments, like maybe the first half against Minnesota, the first half against Atlanta, and to some extent, you could say the Super Bowl. So that's kind of unfortunate. The biggest stage, and your offense just kind of goes, field goal, punt, field goal, punt, field goal, punt, field goal, punt all game. But overall, I think the 2025 offense is better despite some of the areas where it's worse. And the other thing would be, I would say, probably the schedule. I've talked about this before, but the 2013 team, they had a better defense. They did. They allowed way fewer points per game, and generally speaking, nobody disputed the Seahawks had the number 1 defense in 2013. There was nobody really arguing for anyone else. 2025, some people argue for Houston, some people might argue for Denver. There are a couple defenses that have a case to be the number 1 from 2025 that aren't Seattle. So it's contested, so therefore 2013 does win. Here's the thing, though. The 2013 Seattle Seahawks didn't play any really good offenses until the Super Bowl. I made a video talking about this a while back, but you look at their schedule, every team they played had an offense that ranked outside the top 10, except for New Orleans. And I think New Orleans, let me check this to be 100% sure here. Let me make sure I have this right. Yeah, they ranked literally 10th. That was the best offense we played all year until the Super Bowl. Like, the Niners were okay offensively, but they were not great. We played games against teams like the Colts. They had a decent offense, but it wasn't great. I think Carolina this year was outside the top 10, but they were inside the top 15. And we played a lot of terrible offenses in 2013. You compare that to the Seahawks in 2025, they played some bad offenses, but it wasn't the gamut of complete incompetence that the 2013 team got to face. They did have to play 2 games against the Niners. They had to play, well, 3 games against the Niners, really, and 3 games against the Rams. That alone was tougher than anything we had to deal with. We had to play, Tampa Bay when they were healthy, and their offense just was putting on an absolute show. Jacksonville had a pretty good offense last year. There were some credible offenses that we played, and then in the Super Bowl, I mean, New England had one of the best offenses in football. I know that it was mostly because of their schedule, maybe, but this 2025 Seattle team ran a tougher schedule, I think. Not to say the 2013 team didn't play some good teams, right? They did. They had to play the Niners 3 times. They had to play, you kind of get what I'm getting at here. Like, who are the other really good teams, right? Like the Saints, right? The Saints were good, but our division was weaker this year. Remember, the Cardinals were really bad. The Rams were bad. This year, the only bad team we got to feast on was the Cardinals. The other 2 teams in the division were quite good. And even a team like the Colts, and I know we played the Colts after Daniel Jones got hurt and everybody got hurt, but Colts were still a pretty decent team last year. Even a team like that. The Falcons weren't terrible last year. They were competent. So those would be the 2 things that I think you could argue strongly in favor of the 2025 team. They did have a better offense, and they ran a tougher schedule. Other than that, once you get past those elements, it gets a little bit tougher. Like, both teams had the best special teams unit in the league for their year, but I don't know which one had the better special teams. I feel like the 2025 team did, but both teams were so good, it's not an advantage. Like, to me, the 2025 team, the difference is the 2013 team didn't have Harvin except for like 3 games, right? And Harvin was going to be their key return guy. The 2013 team had to lean on Golden Tate, who was a good returner, but not like Shaheed. And even before we got Shaheed, remember, excuse me, Torrey Horton was doing good stuff as a returner as well. So was Derek Young. I think we have a better kicker because our kicker now is a bigger leg. Like, Jason Myers has a bigger leg than Hauschka, and Dixon's probably a better punter than John Ryan. On the other hand, the 2013 team had a better pass rush. Like, the 2025 team had issues with their pass rush because they didn't have great edge rushers overall. The 2013 team was much stronger at edge. Now, the 2025 team was much stronger on the interior. But at the end of the day, it didn't really matter that much because both teams were number 1 in the league against the run. So, yeah, the Seahawks in 2025 were better with their tackles. But what difference does it make when both teams are number 1 in the league against the run, like both teams were? 2013 has better linebackers, definitely a better secondary, as good as the 2025 secondary was. 2025 probably has to have better wide receivers just because JSN was so good kind of by himself is better than, Doug Baldwin and Jermaine Kearse. And remember, that was before Doug Baldwin really broke out. He was just a decent receiver at that point. Offensive line, one thing of note would be the 2025 offensive line stayed pretty healthy. The 2013 team, I remember, had real problems up front. And there were some games where they were down like 3 starters on the offensive line, and they were just getting destroyed. The 2025 team, they had some injuries, but never felt like they were getting really destroyed, except for maybe by like the Vikings. So it's tough, but I want to know what you guys think. I want to know what you guys feel about this one, which team's better. I think the 2013 team, they left their stamp so indelibly on the season by winning the Super Bowl the way they did. And as much as the Seahawks last year did dominate the Super Bowl, it was not the same, right? That Super Bowl was definitive, but it did swing on a handful of very big plays. And if those plays go the other way, New England's in that game for sure. Denver, you could not find a few plays that swing the other way and then Denver's right in the game. Like, Denver's getting walloped no matter what. If they didn't give it up on those plays, they would have given it up on other plays. So I do feel like the 2013 team is a little bit better, but I will say this. There's one thing about the 2025 team that deserves a shout out. When you think about the 2013 team, and this is the thing that could maybe get me to switch up a little bit here, because overall, I do think that as of right now, you look back at the 2013 team, and it's one of the greatest secondaries ever assembled. It's that incredible linebacker pairing of Wagner and KJ Wright. It's the great edge rushers that we had that year: Bennett, Averill, Clemens. And I mean, offensively, they were much better running the ball, right? Like Marshawn Lynch was way more effective as a runner, and the offense in general was way more effective running the ball than the 2025 team was, and it's not close. But the 2013 team did have Pete Carroll at coach, who ran a very simple defense. I think we can all acknowledge that. Even when the defense was incredible, and it was, in terms of results, better than the 2025 defense. But the 2013 defense kind of just stayed in its bubble. They just stayed in the pocket, ran their cover three, and whenever that didn't work, they'd run more cover three, and they'd keep running cover three until either it worked or it didn't work. And there was a sense that if a team could crack that, and teams in future years did kind of crack that, there wasn't a lot this team could do other than just have a great player make a great play at some point. And that's kind of what ended up happening. The 2025 Seahawks with Mike Macdonald doesn't feel like they are similarly limited. With McDonald running that defense, it feels like if they run into something that's giving them trouble or countering them well, they can do things to counter back in a way that the 2013 team could not. The 2013 team played just straight up, and either it worked or it didn't. And hey, it worked, but there is a part of me that wonders, this historically good defense, and don't get me wrong, it is historically good. What would we have seen from them if they had to play better competition? If they didn't get so many weak offenses, so many terrible offenses. Like, you look at this schedule, you will see most of the worst offenses in football on this schedule. I think we played every team in the bottom four. 2025 team, you at least give them a little bit better of a chance, I think, to counter. I know that they didn't play perfect in every game, Lord knows, but at least they can counterpunch a little bit better. So that's an interesting argument. But ultimately, we're just talking about the seasons they had. And as much as I can say that about Mike Macdonald, and I love that about him, it's a little bit tough when you take a look at what happened in those last two Rams games. As much as he can counterpunch, counterpunches didn't really land in those two games. So I don't know. But they landed in most of the other games. So interesting one. But let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Which team is better?